In this video, I will be replacing the chain and sprockets on my 2013 1199 Panigale S, and I'll walk you through each step of the process, including chain removal and installation, sprocket removal and installation, torque this down to 55 Newton meters, and chain tensioning and bleeding the hydraulic clutch, which is optional. This process can also be applied to the 899, 1299, 959, and the V2. I've also added chapter titles to the scroll bar for each step if you want to jump ahead. So there you go. Ying, 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 boom, Spider-Man. Pow! Alright, so our first step is to take off our side fairing as a unit. And to do that, we have 9 socket button head cap screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then there's one right here, number 9, on the inside. And then we have a plastic rivet under here that we have to release with a little screwdriver. And that side fairing will come off, so let's do that. And when you're taking off these screws, just make sure that the plastic washer comes with it. You don't want to lose that. See a little plastic washer? Yeah. Alright, and now to release this rivet, stick this screwdriver under the little slot in the cap of the plastic rivet and just twist the screwdriver and it'll pop right out. I can usually do this without even looking. Feel for it. There we go. There it is. Oh yeah. In order to get this fairing off, we just have to slide it forward a little bit and get this off the lip of the radiator shroud. Once it comes off of there, and off she comes. Okay, we'll put this out of the way, not on the ground, so we won't step on it. Alright, so in order to get access to this front sprocket, I'm going to need to remove this front sprocket cover. In order to do that, I'm going to need to remove the shifter linkage and the clutch hydraulic slave cylinder. You don't necessarily have to remove the clutch hydraulic slave cylinder, but this bike is pushing 36,000 miles. And these slave cylinders do leak. I know the 1299 has an issue with leaking. Now this is an 1199, but I am going to inspect the seals on this clutch slave cylinder. It only takes a couple more minutes, and it really makes life easy when removing this cover and cleaning out all the junk that's in there. So I'll show you how to do that. Remove the QuickShifter sensor. There are 2 socket head cap screws that retain that. Alright, move the connector, tuck it under here. So we'll remove the boot to the hydraulic line. I've got a little makeshift pan here to catch any goodies. Okay, there are a couple of washers here we need to catch. There's one. I'll pull the nipple out of the hydraulic line. So we got 2 washers in the hydraulic fitting. Alright, now we'll remove the screw that retains the rear shifter assembly. There's going to be a thrust washer here we're going to want to catch. There we go. And here's the other one right here. Okay. Alright, now we'll remove the front tie rod screw for the shift linkage. Okay. We can remove the linkage. Okay, so I actually had to replace this QuickShifter assembly because the shift sensor went. I actually got this off eBay. Alright, now we're going to remove the pinch bolt that retains this shift selector lobe. I like to take a socket, 3/8 socket hex key. Just back this out of here. Both this selector shaft and the link are marked, so you don't have to worry about marking these to get the correct clocking when you put it back together. There are 3 screws that retain this hydraulic slave cylinder, so we'll remove those now. Okay. Remove the cylinder. You can just leave the rod in place. It looks pretty good, no leaks. Now we'll remove this front sprocket cover. There are 2 socket head cap screws that retain this cover. There's 2. This cover just comes pretty much straight out. Just grab it here, you can pull it straight out. There's the cover. We don't have any hydraulic fluid in there. That's good. The next step is to loosen the front sprocket. Now there's a reason I've left the chain on here. That's to apply the foot brake to provide the necessary reaction to be able to loosen this socket head screw. Climb on the bike. Apply the rear foot brake. Get our socket wrench. And we're just going to leave that loose. We're not going to remove it. Okay, now we'll cut this zip tie for the safety clip. Alright, now we'll remove our clip. We'll take our nifty Speedy Moto Impact 12-point socket to take the axle nut off. Now I'm going to use an impact wrench along with my handy dandy Speedy Moto Impact Safe 12-point axle nut socket. You don't have to use an impact wrench. You can have a buddy of yours lean on the brake while you hang off a friggin' breaker bar. You know, it's probably about 200 foot-pounds worth of loosening that you got to do here. But your choice. I'm going to use the old impact hammer. Alright. I'm going to screw that back on there, snug it up. Alright, now that we got that loose, we can go ahead and break the chain. We got our Stockton chain tool kit. Ooh, alright. Spring, rivet pin, spring goes in, then we take the pin, oh yeah, there it goes. Okay, back that off a little bit, open this baby up so we can fit it around the chain rivet. See that? Oh yeah, I'm going to drive that pin through the chain. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, we'll screw on our handle. And select our rivet. Center that around the pin. Snug that down. So now we've clamped the chain breaker to the chain. Alright, now I'm going to grab my 1/2-inch drive. Put it on the end of my chain rivet tool. And start driving that pin. Oh, that's all she wrote. And there it is. Okay, now we'll back this off. Oh, let's go. Oh yeah. Take the old chain off. There she is. 18,000 miles. Cape Cod air is not too kind to the steel. Look at that. Now we can remove the front sprocket. Alright, now we get the sprocket off. A little block of wood here. I'm just going to tap this thing a few places. Put our fingers behind here. There she goes. Alright, there's the sprocket. Ew. I'm gonna clean all this goo out of here. Look at this goo. See that? Before we go any further, I'm gonna cover up this hydraulic line so we don't get any goods in there while we're cleaning out that front sprocket well. Okay, now we'll remove the rear sprocket assembly. Oh, there she is. Alright, now we'll put this in the vise so we can get these nuts off the isolators. Freaking nuts off. Yeah, put this baby in the vise. Okay. So we got a hex socket for the rear. We got a 12 point for the front. 14 millimeter. What's this baby? T60. Alright. Okay. Take our universal persuader. There she goes. All right. Inspect these isolators just to make sure that the rubber hasn't cracked or degraded. So we've got our new rear sprocket. I got this off of eBay. This part number has actually been canceled. These came stock on the 1199Rs. So let's compare the teeth on these babies. See, the involute has pretty much been flattened on the old one, but the crown's in pretty good shape. This probably could have won another 10 or so thousand miles, but yeah, you can see there's quite a bit of wear there. Probably about 30 thou wear there. I got this front sprocket from Drive Systems. I've seen worse. These aren't too bad. 40, 50 thousandths there. So this one probably had another 10,000 miles in it. Prego, prego, grazie, prego. Get the old Ducati World Premiere while we're working on our Ducati. Let's see what the new monster looks like. It's red, that's good. Audi hasn't made them change that yet. Looks like it's monocoque.
Here we have the Testostretta, 11 degrees, twin cylinder.
Man, they're friggin' milking that Testostrata. Oh, brother. Got rid of the trellis frame. Okay, Audi. Yeah, reduce the cost. Increase the profit margin. Oh, it's got that Velcro casting just like the Panigale. Very high density, very low void castings. I don't think so. Now we can assemble our cush drive. Just putting a little assembly lube on the isolator housing. Now, little Loctite 243. This is a medium strength Loctite. Put that on the threads. I like to put it on the threads of both components. So, I'm going to torque it to 44 Newton meters, which is 44 times 0.738, 32.5 foot-pounds. I'm going to go Newton meters, 44. I'm going to go on a crosswise pattern. Ba-boom! There she is. Oh yeah, looking good. Okay, let's install it. We'll loosen the eccentric hub. We'll take our spanner wrench and rotate the eccentric hub to the 9 o'clock position, the loosest position. Okay, the eccentric hub is now in a position that will allow the loosest chain condition when we install the chain. I've cleaned up the axle and all of the components, and now I'm going to grease the axle. Apply a thin film of grease to the inner washer. Place that over the axle. Apply some grease to the push drive. We'll install the new sprocket assembly. Apply a thin film of grease to the outer washer. Install the washer. Make sure the threads on the nut are good and clean. Install the axle nut. Alright, so I need assistance from the Fancyanimal Junior here. Can you climb on there? So what you're going to do is put your foot on the brake. Okay, here we go. Ready? Yeah. Alright, now we'll put on our clip. Let's go, clip. Our zip tie here. I'm going to clean around the seal. Get everything spick and span. Okay, we've cleaned out the sprocket well there. Got all the goodies out of there. And now we're ready to install the front sprocket. Clean the chain guide as well, all the way through. Grease the shaft. Oh yeah. Get our 15-tooth sprocket. So the factory sprockets on the 1199 are 15 front, 39 rear, and I went with a 41 rear sprocket and kept the front stock 15-tooth sprocket. So I'm gonna grease this baby. Okay. Alright, install our front sprocket. Insert the screw. Alright, so here's our old chain. Here's our new DID 525 chain. X-ring chain. Got a friggin' sub sandwich in here. What do we got? There's our master link. Okay, the old chain was 106 links. This is 120. So we're gonna cut out 14 links. Alright, I've laid out my old chain versus my new chain, counted off my 106 links, including the master link. I've marked off my 14 links I'm gonna separate from the main section of chain. Now I'm going to use my chain tool and cut this chain to length. There's our pin. There's our 14 length of chain. Let's see how much our chain is stretched here. Just about a half of an inch. We can actually figure out percent elongation. 1 minus the initial length, which is 66 3/4, divided by the final length, 67 1/4. 66.75 divided by 67.25 minus 1 times 100. We get a 0.74% elongation. Hoorah! We'll install our chain. Apply some goo here. We'll apply a little grease to the master link face and pins. Put on our O-ring. Apply grease to the pins. Insert our master link. Put on our outer X-rings. All right, position our link. Now we'll install our top and bottom press plates into the chain tool. You want to make sure that the chain pins are aligned with the clearance holes in this top plate so that the plate is pressed on uniformly. All right. Keep trying to tweak the alignment a little bit so that the pins will pop through this top press plate. I want to make sure that I'm pressing this plate on uniformly on both sides here. There we go. So we'll just take our calipers and make a few measurements to neighboring lengths to see what the width across the chain link plates are. So 753 thousandths, 752 thousandths, 756 thousandths. This is our master link. The width across the plates is 755 thousandths. We'll measure outside of the pins to make sure that the plate width is uniform across the chain. 755 thousandths, 755 thousandths, plus or minus half a thou. I'm going to show you how to assemble the Stockton chain rivet tool for riveting. So here's the tool body. Attach the handle. We'll take the alignment bolt, the big bolt, thread that in. We'll take the spring and the riveting pin. Now the riveting pin is delineated from the other tools, the other pins, by having this little nipple on the end. See that? So we'll slip that spring over the riveting pin, put the pin into the alignment bolt, and then we'll take the push bolt, we'll thread that in to the alignment bolt. Then you want to take your large anvil, which is this one, has a recess here to receive the pin on the other side of the chain. We just slip that into the base here, the body, and that's it. We got a little handle here. And that's it. We're ready to go. Now we're going to do our master link pin baseline measurements. Looks like about 214 thousandths. Yeah, 214 thousandths. So our goal is to grow the diameter of these chain pins by 20 to 28 thousandths of an inch, or about 0.5 millimeter to 0.7 millimeters, by flaring these pins using the chain tool. So I took my baseline measurement of 0.214 inches. So 20 to 28 thousandths gets me 234 to 242. So that's what I'm shooting for. Or 5.94 millimeters to 6.15 millimeters. Okay, so to rivet our master link, what we're going to do is take our chain tool. We got this recess here in the anvil. We're going to place that centered in the opposing end of the rivet. Okay, so that centers the tool. And then we're going to turn down the alignment bolt until it just stops shy of the chain plate, this link plate, by about 40 to 80 thousandths. And then we're going to turn down the riveting pin till it stops against the chain pin. You want this bolt to move freely and not contact the chain plate while you're tightening the rivet pin. Rather than using this handle, I'll just use a large crescent wrench. Place that over the tool body. Then what we'll do is I'll take our 1/2-inch drive with a 14mm socket, put it over the end of the riveting pin, start turning clockwise, righty-tighty. I do about 3/4 turns, back it off, and then I'll check the rivet head diameter. Now we'll check the rivet head diameter. About 220 thousandths. Got another 14 thousandths to go. Now you'll notice that the alignment bolt is turning as I tighten down on this rivet. And if you were to have that alignment bolt flush against the link, what it would do is compress the link and create a kink in the chain. So what I like to do is back that alignment bolt about 40 to 80 thousandths off the face of the link so that I don't crimp that link. And with this tool you get about maybe 3 really tight quarter turns before you back it off. There's 1. That's 2. And that's 3. And now I'll back it off. It's probably going to take you 4 or 5 attempts, if you do it right, to get this rivet properly flared. You don't want to rush it. You do not want to over flare this rivet, because then you'll kink the chain and you'll have to grind the master link off, and you don't want to do that. So take your time. I know it's a tedious process, but by taking your time you'll be saving yourself time. Alright, we'll check our rivet head diameter. Looks like we're 234 thousandths, right on the button. Alright, now I'll rotate the wheel and we'll check to make sure that the chain rotates freely about the master link. It's not kinked or bound. Looks pretty good. Alright, so we're done with that. Now we'll adjust the chain tension. So the pinch bolt's loose on the eccentric hub. We'll use our spanner wrench. And we'll go counterclockwise to tighten the chain. So we'll just get the chain in the ballpark. To properly tension it, we have to take it off the pit bull stand and put it on its side stand. All right, now we'll back out the screw that retains the front sprocket. Now we'll apply some medium strength Loctite thread locker. Just snug this down. All right, same process as before. Apply the foot brake. Torque this down to 55 Newton meters. All right, I'm going to show you a couple of ways to adjust your chain. A hard way and easy way. So hard way first. What we're going to do is measure the distance between the axis of rotation for the front and rear sprocket and divide by 2 to find the chain midspan. We're about 24.5, so that's 12.25 inches. We come 12.25 inches and we're right here. And if you actually reach your finger under the swing arm, you'll feel a screw right here. So that's the midspan of the swing arm. Then we're going to find our midspan where the screw is, come off with a tape measure, and just find the low spot in the chain. Keep turning the wheel clockwise till we find the low spot in the chain. All right, now we'll take the bike off the pit bull stand and put it on the side stand. Here's the screw that marks the midspan of the swing arm. Per our little decal here on the swing arm, it says our maximum limit distance from the bottom of the swing arm to the center line of the chain rivets or pins is 50 millimeters, or about 2 inches. So, take our tape measure. We're going to come off the base of the swing arm, not the plastic piece, the chain guide. Okay, off the base of swing arm, center line of these chain pins, 2 3/16. So we're a little loose, so we're going to tighten the chain. So we take a tape measure. 50 millimeters is about 2 inches, 1.97 inches, but 2 inches is close enough. We drop down from the screw head, the center line of the pin. We come down to this chain pin right here, and we're almost exactly at 2 inches. The other method you can use is a little bit more qualitative. You find the point under the midspan, just push up on the chain until it stops with light pressure, and it should stop about 1/8 of an inch short of the chain guide, and then with a little bit of pressure, it should then touch the chain guide. See that? So that's how I check my chain tension generally. I just grab the chain, push it up till it stops, and then there we go. Now you can also use the old 3-finger rule. Again, at the midspan, drop down 3 fingers, and the chain rivet or chain pin should be, the center line of that pin should be just at the bottom of your 3rd finger, unless you get really fat fingers.
Why is that, do you think?
Now we'll tighten these pinch bolts on the eccentric hub. I usually just like to spin them by hand. They stop. We're going to torque this to 25 Newton meters. You want to jump between these progressively, because if you don't jump back and forth, you may over-tighten one side, and then the bearing inside that hub will wear prematurely because it doesn't have a uniform clamping force on it. Just indexing these cap screws. There is actually a tightening pattern for this, but I don't think anyone uses it. We're doing like 1/8 turns here. Now we'll reassemble everything else in reverse, starting with the sprocket cover, which I've just cleaned. Oh yeah, look at that thing, sparkling. Now we'll install the shift linkage. Apply a little grease to the washer. Alright, install the washer on the back side of the rear set hanger. We have a mark here on the shift selector shaft and a corresponding mark on this pinch clamp. Alright, we'll fasten the shift tie rod to the shifter throw. And apply a little Loctite to the pinch bolt for the selector throw. We'll tighten the shifter pivot bolt. Again, we're just snugging this up. Check the shifter operation. We're going to clock the pin to like 2 o'clock so it aligns with the slave cylinder. Now we'll install the hydraulic line fitting. Washer on the top, washer on the bottom. Alright, we just snug that up. Okay. Now we'll install the QuickShifter sensor. Okay, so now we're going to bleed the hydraulic clutch. And the first thing we need to do is put down something to protect the paint and to protect the plastic cover on the electronic display or dashboard. The brake fluid is caustic, it will dissolve the paint and it will dissolve plastics. So I know this is overkill, but I just take some aluminum foil, cover the tank, the display, and even the windscreen. And then I'll just take a little plastic bag to cover the brake lever. All right, now I'll remove the cap on the master cylinder reservoir for the clutch. Move our baffle. Set these down on a table because they're covered with brake fluid. Do not put it on the bike. You don't want to damage the paint. Now we'll take a paper towel or shop towels and we'll simply soak up the residual brake fluid that's in the reservoir. Now we'll fill the reservoir with fresh .4 brake fluid. About 3/4 of the way. Place a rag around the reservoir to catch any goodies. So to bleed the hydraulic system for the clutch, we're going to start from the furthest point away from the reservoir. Remove the bleeder valve cap. I like to remove it completely. Essentially the process is depress the clutch lever, build up pressure in the system, open the bleeder valve, allow fluid to flow. Once the flow slows down, close this bleeder valve and then release the clutch lever. So we're going to do that a few times, and we're going to keep our eye on the fluid level in the reservoir. We don't want that to run down or we'll introduce air into the system. We don't want to do that. So take our wrench on the valve stem, depress the clutch, slowly open the valve, allow the brake fluid to flow, close the valve, release the clutch lever. Once that fluid starts to slow down its flow rate and start to come backwards, I want to make sure that valve is closed. A good rule of thumb is to bleed the system until you've emptied the reservoir about 3 times. So we're going to go ahead and repeat this until I've cycled through the reservoir 3 times, making sure that it never goes completely dry because I don't want to introduce air into the system. Once this is done, we'll switch to the front master cylinder. So you want to check your reservoir as you go to make sure you don't empty the reservoir and suck air into the system. So we're going to top this off. We can see that we don't have any air bubbles in here. All right, so we'll use the same process that we used to bleed the slave cylinder to bleed the master cylinder. This time we're going to take a 11mm or 7/16 wrench, place it over the bleed nipple, press the clutch lever, open the valve slowly. We're watching for air bubbles, so you can see some air bubbles in there. Close the valve once the fluid starts to back off, and then release the lever. Again, depress the lever, open the nipple, close, release the lever. Now, if you do happen to suck air into the master cylinder, you will not be able to bleed it using a traditional method. You'll have to actually suck the air out of the master cylinder. Now, I have a Mighty Vac, but there's a lot of you that probably don't have one. So you can just use a shop vacuum that I have here. It's the nozzle on a shop vac. Here's my piece of tubing. Simply place the tubing in the end of the shop vac and put your thumb down into the hole. And you can meter the amount of vacuum that you're applying to this valve just by closing off the hole in the end of the vacuum hose. There we go. We've got our clutch pressure back. Clean off the nipple, install our cap. All right, so we've bled the master cylinder. Now we're back at the slave cylinder, and we're going to bleed this one more time. Place the wrench, depress the clutch lever, slowly open the valve, close the valve, release the lever. As you can see, we don't have any air bubbles in here, so we're good to go. Clean the nipple and place the cap. So you're going to fill your reservoir about 1/4 to 1/3 of the way. Put your baffle in. All right, now we'll install our fairing. I'm going to place this over the fan shroud lip. Align our little tabs at the bottom of the electronics enclosure. Slide it to the right, and it's on. If you're unsure of which screw goes to which position on the belly pan, the longer of these shoulder bolts, the longer one goes in the front position. This one on the side has a plastic washer. Squeeze the base of the fairing together. This side belly pan screw does not have a plastic washer. put on our little plastic rivet. Turn the wheel the other way. Squeeze this together, push it in, push the cap. Nothing in here, that's always good. And we're done. Let's take it for a test ride.